The deep silence of space was broken only by the faint hum of the communication systems aboard the outermost research station, orbiting a distant star. The crew, mostly scientists from the United Earth Federation, had been working for months, studying the strange anomalies that were appearing all over the galaxy. Their mission was to gather data, but what they found on this particular day would change the course of history. It started as a whisper, a faint signal cutting through the static. It was barely detectable at first, a soft pulse of radio waves that seemed out of place. Commander Aria Jensen, the leader of the research team, was the first to notice it. She sat alone in the command center, eyes fixed on the monitors, when the signal flashed on the screen. At first, she thought it was a glitch, but then it repeated, growing stronger. She leaned in closer, her curiosity piqued. The signal wasn't random, it was deliberate. The message was short, but it was enough to send a shiver down her spine. Every empire that fell left this warning. Earth hides something far darker. Jensen stared at the message in disbelief. It made no sense. Earth was just another planet in the vast expanse of the galaxy. Sure, it had its own history, but why would ancient empires, long gone and forgotten, be concerned with it? She immediately relayed the message to the rest of the team. They had to know what this was. The rest of the crew scrambled into the command center, murmuring amongst themselves as they gathered around the screens. Dr. Cal Ross, the lead scientist, was the first to speak. "This is impossible. We've been monitoring space signals for years, and nothing like this has ever come through. This is not just a message. This is a warning." But from who? The words "Earth hides something far darker" echoed in the room. The meaning was clear but vague at the same time. What was Earth hiding? What could possibly be so important that it would warrant a warning from long-dead civilizations? Jensen's heart raced as she tried to process the implications. She turned to the comm system, sending out a request for more information, but the signal was gone. In a matter of seconds, it had vanished, leaving only a cold, empty space on the screens. The message had been brief, but its impact was undeniable. Earth wasn't just any planet. It was something more. But what? The team began to run diagnostics on their equipment, but everything seemed normal. No interference, no sign of any external forces. The signal had come from nowhere and disappeared into the vastness of space just as quickly. Yet, the warning remained. "Commander," Dr. Ross said, breaking the silence, "I think we need to look into this. If ancient empires knew about Earth's secret, then we may be dealing with something far bigger than we can imagine. This could be the key to understanding why so many civilizations fell." Jensen felt the weight of his words settle heavily on her shoulders. She had always believed that Earth was insignificant in the grand scheme of the universe, but now that perception was shattered. What if the warning wasn't just a random message? What if Earth had something that the galaxy feared? The crew spent the next few hours analyzing the signal and cross-referencing it with every piece of historical data they could find. They found nothing. No record of any ancient civilizations mentioning Earth. No hint that Earth had ever been a place of importance. In fact, Earth's history had been largely ignored by the galaxy's more advanced civilizations. It was a planet that had just started to make its mark, still crawling through the early stages of space exploration. But then they found something. It was buried deep in the archives, an ancient text from a long-forgotten civilization that had been destroyed centuries ago. The language was old, nearly indecipherable, but the symbols it contained matched the ones in the signal they had received. The text spoke of a hidden force on a distant world, one that had been sealed away for eternity. The civilizations that had come before had tried to uncover it, but they failed. The text didn't give any specifics, only that the force was powerful enough to wipe out entire empires. Jensen felt a cold chill run down her spine. Could this be the same force? Was Earth really guarding something so dangerous that it had been hidden from the galaxy for millennia? And if so, why? Why had they never been told? The team quickly put together a plan to investigate further. They couldn't ignore the message. It was clear that whatever was hidden on Earth was of immense importance, and it wasn't just an ancient myth. It was a warning. The first step would be to reach out to Earth's leadership and request more information, but that posed its own set of challenges. Earth's government was notoriously secretive, and if they knew anything about this force, they were keeping it hidden. The last thing Earth needed was to attract the attention of alien civilizations who might have their own interests in what lay beneath. Hours passed, and the team continued to search for more clues. But every time they thought they were getting closer to the truth, something else seemed to block their path. The signal had been clear, but it was incomplete. Whoever had sent it had wanted them to know just enough to stir suspicion, but not enough to give them the full picture. As Jensen sat in her chair, staring at the blackness of space outside the station's windows, a sinking feeling washed over her. What if the message was a trap? What if this ancient warning wasn't just about keeping Earth's secrets safe, but about preventing something far worse from being unleashed? The answer, she knew, was out there somewhere. But as the cold stars flickered outside the station, Jensen couldn't shake the feeling that they were not the only ones listening. The galaxy had been warned, but it seemed that Earth's darkest secret was still waiting to be uncovered. And as the crew prepared to dig deeper into the mystery, Jensen couldn't help but wonder, what if this warning wasn't just about saving Earth? It was about saving the entire universe. As the days passed, the station's crew worked tirelessly to understand the implications of the mysterious warning. Commander Jensen was restless. The more she thought about the signal, the more questions piled up. Earth was supposed to be just another planet, one among billions in the galaxy. Yet this ancient warning, delivered with such urgency, spoke of something far darker hidden beneath the surface. It wasn't just a threat to Earth. It was a threat to the entire galaxy, possibly even the universe. Evelyn Klein, the station's lead archaeologist, had been poring over every ancient text, every record, looking for clues that could explain the origins of the warning. She was certain the signal was not a random anomaly. There was too much purpose in the message, too much weight behind it. The more she examined the texts they'd uncovered, the more she believed the warning had been passed down through generations of fallen civilizations. But why Earth? Why would such a vast, ancient network of empires, spread across the galaxy, have focused on a relatively insignificant world like Earth? The team started making preparations for a deep dive into Earth's history. They needed answers, and they needed them fast. But there was something that bothered Jensen. Something in the pit of her stomach told her they were walking into a trap. Why had the signal come now? Why had it been sent at all? Earth had been isolated for so long, only recently making contact with the galaxy's more advanced species. For all these years, it had been left untouched, unnoticed. But now, after centuries of quiet, something was stirring. Someone, or something, was trying to make sure Earth's secret stayed hidden. Days later, the station received a distress signal. This one wasn't a cryptic message like the first. It was an urgent call for help from an Earth-based scientific team working at a remote research facility in the Arctic. The team had been investigating strange seismic readings near a vast, unexplored cavern system buried deep beneath the ice. They had discovered something, a massive structure, old beyond comprehension. Before the transmission cut out, the lead scientist's voice was frantic, warning that they had uncovered something that wasn't supposed to be found. The connection was lost before they could send any more details, but it was clear. Earth's darkest secret was already being uncovered. Jensen's gut twisted. She couldn't ignore the feeling that this was all connected, that whatever was hidden beneath Earth's surface was now awake, and it was calling to those who dared approach. Evelyn Klein immediately began preparing a team to investigate the situation in the Arctic. The station's resources were stretched thin, but the urgency in the scientist's voice couldn't be ignored. As the team suited up, the mood on the station grew tense. Jensen, though, couldn't shake the sense of foreboding that had gripped her since the signal came through. She had seen enough to know that something bigger than Earth's history was at play here. Something far darker than anyone could imagine. The shuttle carrying Evelyn's team descended toward the frozen wilderness of the Arctic. They landed near the research facility, now eerily silent, its buildings abandoned and covered in snow. The team moved cautiously, their breath fogging in the frigid air as they made their way toward the entrance of the cavern system. The ground beneath their feet felt unnaturally solid, almost too smooth, as if the entire area had been artificially shaped. Inside the cavern, the walls were covered in strange markings, ancient symbols no one could decipher. Evelyn's team spread out, scanning every inch of the stone walls, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. The symbols were everywhere, seemingly woven into the very structure of the cavern, but they didn't look like anything from Earth. They were too precise, too advanced. Then they found it. In the deepest part of the cavern, hidden beneath layers of ice and rock, lay a massive door, its surface covered in those same markings. This wasn't just a cave. It was a tomb, or perhaps a prison. And whatever was behind that door had been sealed away for millennia. Evelyn's hand shook as she approached the door. The team worked quickly to clear the ice and rocks that had sealed it shut. But as they did, something strange began to happen. The air grew heavier, colder. The ground beneath them began to vibrate ever so slightly, like a heartbeat. The door groaned, as if it were awakening from a long slumber. And then, as the final piece of rock was removed, the door slowly creaked open. Behind it, the team found a chamber unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls of the room were lined with intricate machinery, some of which seemed to pulse with an eerie light. At the center of the chamber stood a massive structure, its surface smooth and dark, radiating a faint otherworldly energy. The moment they stepped into the chamber, the temperature dropped dramatically. The air was thick, almost suffocating, as if they had entered a place where time itself was warped. And then they felt it. A presence, cold and vast, pressing against their minds. It wasn't a physical force, but something more. A consciousness. Something that had been waiting. Watching. Evelyn's heart raced. The presence grew stronger, pressing against her thoughts, pushing her to the brink of madness. She had heard stories of ancient beings, guardians of forgotten secrets, but she had never believed them. Now, standing before this dark, powerful force, she realized how wrong she had been. Whatever lay behind that door had been waiting for the right moment to awaken, and now, that moment had come. As the team backed away, trying to retreat, a voice echoed through the chamber, a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. You have awakened the Guardian. Earth's secret will no longer be kept. The galaxy will know the truth. Jensen, still orbiting in the space station above, could feel it too. The weight of what they had uncovered was already spreading across the galaxy. The warning had come for a reason. And soon, everyone would know what Earth had been hiding. The galaxy's darkest secret was no longer safe. The crew back at the space station had barely processed the information from the Arctic when the warning signs began. It started with a subtle shift in the station's sensors. At first, it was minor. An odd energy fluctuation, a strange blip in the communication channels. But as the hours passed, the anomalies grew more pronounced, and the sense of unease deepened. Commander Area Jensen stood in the observation deck, staring out into the cold void of space. Her mind raced with the events that had unfolded over the past few days. The message, the ancient warning, the sealed chamber on Earth. She could no longer deny it. Something dark, something ancient, was awakening beneath the planet's surface. But what was it? What could possibly be powerful enough to bring entire civilizations to ruin? Suddenly, the station's alarms blared. The sound was sharp and urgent, cutting through the tension like a knife. Jensen turned, her heart pounding, as the station's chief engineer, Lieutenant Marcos, rushed into the room. "Commander, we got a problem," Marcos said, his voice tight with fear. "We're receiving a transmission, but it's not from Earth." Jensen's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" Who is it from? Marcos didn't have an answer. The transmission was unlike anything they had ever encountered. It wasn't from a known source, nor was it in any language or format the crew could decode. The only thing that stood out was the unmistakable sense of urgency, of danger. The message was simple but chilling. They are coming. Earth must be destroyed. Jensen's breath caught in her throat. Who is coming? She whispered under her breath. She knew the answer without needing to ask. The fallen empires, the ancient civilizations that had once ruled the galaxy and had failed to uncover Earth's secret, were coming. And now, after centuries of silence, they were making their move. The crew scrambled to analyze the transmission, but it was clear they were running out of time. The mysterious energy fluctuations around the station intensified, and the station's computer systems began malfunctioning. The lights flickered, and the once steady hum of the engines grew erratic. Something was interfering with the station's systems, and it wasn't a natural occurrence. The crew worked desperately to maintain control, but the deeper they delved into the mystery of the transmission, the more they realized that Earth was no longer the only target. The ancient forces, the ones that had been lying dormant beneath the planet's surface, had awakened something far worse. The Guardian had already begun to send out pulses of energy that reached across the galaxy, pulling the attention of powerful civilizations that had long since fallen and now sought revenge for their failures. The galaxy was on the brink of war, and Earth was the spark. On Earth, Dr. Evelyn Klein and her team had made a shocking discovery. The chamber they had uncovered in the Arctic was far more than just a prison. It was a focal point, a point of convergence for a vast, ancient network of power that stretched across the galaxy. They had unearthed only the tip of the iceberg. What they had uncovered in that chamber wasn't just a weapon. It was a key to unlocking a force that had been sealed away to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. But now it was too late. The Guardian, an entity of unimaginable power, had begun to stir. And as it awakened, it sent a signal, a call to the lost empires. Its message was clear. The time has come. Reclaim what is yours, or let the galaxy burn. The fallen empires, scattered and broken, responded quickly. They had waited for centuries, observing Earth from the shadows, and now they were ready. The transmission reached their ancient ships that had once been part of the galactic fleets of civilizations that had crumbled, their once great empires destroyed by the very forces they had sought to control. One by one, the remnants of these civilizations began to converge on Earth. Their ships, though damaged and worn, were still powerful. They carried the weight of empires that had once ruled the stars. And now, they sought Earth's hidden power, the key to their ultimate victory. As the ancient ships approached, the crew aboard the station scrambled to figure out what was happening. The station's sensors picked up several unidentified vessels heading toward Earth's orbit, but they were unlike anything they had ever encountered. These ships were ancient, their design predating anything the Federation had ever seen. Their surfaces were covered in strange markings, symbols that matched those found in the Arctic ruins. Jensen ordered the crew to prepare for a potential confrontation. There was no way to know if these ships were hostile. But one thing was certain: the civilizations that had failed to uncover Earth's secret had returned, and they were not here to make peace. The tension on the station was palpable. Each member of the crew felt the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. What did these civilizations want? Why had they waited so long? And most importantly, what had they uncovered that Earth's government had been trying so desperately to keep hidden? Back on Earth, Dr. Klein and her team were scrambling to understand the significance of their discovery. The Guardian had awakened, and its presence was growing stronger with every passing hour. They had no choice but to try to deactivate it. But the Guardian's power was unlike anything they had ever faced. It wasn't just a weapon. It was an entire system, a network designed to protect Earth from forces beyond comprehension. And now that it had reactivated, it was responding to the ancient empires that were closing in on Earth. Klein could feel the weight of the moment. Every decision she made could have catastrophic consequences. If the Guardian was destroyed, Earth would be vulnerable. But if they couldn't stop it, the galaxy would be plunged into chaos. The clock was ticking. The ancient empires were coming. And Earth's darkest secret was about to be exposed for all to see. Jensen, aboard the station, watched as the enemy ships grew closer. Her mind raced. They were not just fighting to protect Earth. They were fighting for the survival of everything they knew. The galaxy was on the verge of war, and it was all because of one thing, Earth's hidden secret. But the real question was, would humanity be ready to face what was coming? Or had they already lost the battle before it had even begun? The tension aboard the station was unbearable. Commander Area Jensen paced back and forth in the command center, her eyes glued to the tactical display. On the screen, the ancient ships were closing in on Earth's orbit, their strange, angular shapes growing larger with every passing minute. These were not just old warships. They were relics of forgotten empires, remnants of galactic powers that had vanished months ago. And now, they had come for Earth. Jensen could feel the weight of the responsibility pressing down on her. The crew was ready for battle, but no one knew what to expect from the incoming fleet. Their ships were unlike anything the Federation had ever encountered, and no one could say for sure if they were prepared to withstand whatever these ancient empires had in store. The worst part, they didn't even know why these ships had come. Earth was a backwater world. Until recently, it hadn't been on anyone's radar. So what was it about Earth's dark secret that had drawn the attention of these ancient civilizations? "We're running out of time," Lieutenant Marcos said, breaking her chain of thought. He stood at the communications station, his hands flying over the controls. "The ships are transmitting. I've managed to decrypt part of their signal, but it's not making any sense. It's mostly garbled, with only a few clear phrases. The Guardian has awakened. Earth is no longer safe." And the last one. He hesitated, his face pale. "The end is near." Jensen's blood ran cold. These weren't just empty threats. These were dire warnings. The Guardian, the ancient force beneath Earth's surface, had come to life, and now the galaxy's deadliest empires were closing in to claim it. The question now was what they planned to do once they reached Earth. Would they destroy it? Would they take what they wanted and leave? Or was Earth just the beginning of a far more terrifying plan? "We need more intel," Jensen said sharply, snapping out of her thoughts. "I want every sensor, every satellite in range, focused on those ships. I want to know everything, what they're armed with, what their capabilities are, and if there's any chance of communication. Maybe we can still reason with them." "We're not sure if reasoning is an option anymore, Commander," said Dr. Cal Ross, the station's lead scientist. He had been working nonstop with his team, trying to analyze the data from the ancient signal they had intercepted. "This isn't just about power. This is about something much deeper. Earth holds the key to something so dangerous that even these ancient empires fear it. We've been operating on the assumption that they've come for Earth's resources, but that's not it. They want control of the Guardian, Commander. The message is clear. The Guardian is their final hope for survival." Jensen's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean? Survival from what?" Ross hesitated before answering. "I've been digging into the old texts again, the ones we found from the fallen civilizations. They talk about a time when the Guardian was created, a time when an ancient entity, a being of unimaginable power, threatened the galaxy. The Guardian wasn't just a weapon. It was a prison, a containment system designed to trap this entity. And now it's been reawakened. The galaxy's most powerful civilizations couldn't control it, so they sealed it away. But if the Guardian is breaking free, that means the threat has returned." Jensen felt a chill run down her spine. The implications of Ross's words were staggering. If the Guardian wasn't just a weapon but a prison, then the entity it was holding must be something catastrophic. And now, with the Guardian awake, that entity was free, or at least beginning to wake up. Whatever was coming had the power to undo everything. And these ancient civilizations had clearly returned to Earth because they believed it was the only place capable of holding this force back. "We need to warn Earth," Jensen said, her voice hard. "We need to make sure that no matter what happens, Earth is ready. We have to stop whatever is coming before it's too late." As the crew continued to monitor the incoming ships, the station's sensors began to pick up strange signals. Energetic pulses, waves of energy emanating from Earth's surface. It wasn't just from the Arctic Research Station anymore. The pulses were coming from all over the planet, centered around the Arctic region, but spreading outward, as if something below the surface was calling them. The Guardian was active, and it was trying to reach out. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Evelyn Klein and her team were trapped. The Arctic Research Station had gone silent after their last transmission, and they had no way of knowing whether help would arrive in time. The vast underground chamber they had uncovered was far larger than they had originally thought, extending deep into the crust of the planet. And it wasn't just the Guardian's power they were sensing. There was something else down there. Something far more ancient, far more terrifying. Evelyn's team had ventured deeper into the chamber, and now they were in the heart of it. They had uncovered a massive network of tunnels and structures that seemed to pulse with the same dark energy they had felt earlier. It was as if the very earth beneath their feet was alive, shifting and reacting to their presence. They had no idea what was down there, but they knew one thing for sure. The deeper they went, the stronger the presence grew. And it wasn't just energy, it was consciousness. Something was awake. Something that should have stayed asleep. In the deepest part of the cavern, they found it. A massive, ancient structure, unlike anything human technology had ever seen. It was a combination of organic and metallic materials, fused together as if crafted by a race that understood the manipulation of both life and machine. This structure was the core of the Guardian, the prison and the key. And in the center of it all, there was a shimmering dark portal, a gateway to another realm, another dimension. Evelyn and her team were staring at the portal when the ground began to tremble. The air became thick with energy, and for the first time, they realized they were not alone. The presence they had been sensing was not just a passive force. It was aware of them, and it was drawing closer. In that moment, everything clicked. The Guardian wasn't just a defense mechanism. It was the final barrier against something far more dangerous, something that the galaxy had tried to lock away for good. The warning had been clear. Earth hides something far darker. The ancient empires had feared it. And now, as the portal began to flicker and pulse with dark energy, Evelyn understood why. The galaxy's greatest threat had never been fully eradicated. It had only been sealed away, hidden beneath Earth's surface. And now, as the Guardian's power grew, it was breaking free. The team had awoken the force, and it was coming for them. For all of them. Back in space, Commander Jensen and her crew were on high alert. The enemy ships were closer than ever, their weapons primed. The darkness beneath Earth's surface was stirring. And soon, the galaxy would learn just how close they were to total annihilation. The war had begun, and the true nature of Earth's secret was about to be revealed. The time for hiding was over. The ancient empires, once scattered and forgotten, had arrived at Earth's doorstep. Their ships loomed ominously in orbit, ancient hulls crackling with energy, their weapons primed for whatever lay ahead. On the space station, Commander Aria Jensen and her crew braced themselves for the coming storm. The air was thick with anticipation, and despite their preparedness, no one knew what awaited them, except that Earth, and perhaps the entire galaxy, was on the verge of catastrophe. Jensen stood in the command center, her eyes scanning the array of tactical displays. The mysterious, massive ships were now within striking distance. Their designs were ancient, but they were far from weak. These empires, once all-powerful, were now desperate. The Guardian, the force beneath Earth's surface, had awakened. And now, every civilization that had fallen before it was back, not to reclaim their lost power, but to stop what they had started, to contain the threat they had sealed away millennia ago. But they weren't the only ones aware of the danger. Beneath the surface of Earth, Dr. Evelyn Klein and her team had made a chilling discovery in the Arctic chamber. The Guardian, a sentient entity of unfathomable power, wasn't just a protector. It was a prison holding something far worse than the galaxy had ever known. The entity, once bound, was now breaking free, and the portal at the heart of the Guardian's chamber was the only thing standing between the world and annihilation. As Klein and her team scrambled to understand the magnitude of what they had uncovered, the vibrations beneath their feet grew more intense. The structure they had found, with its dark, pulsing energy, was alive in a way they couldn't comprehend. The Guardian wasn't just awakening. It was preparing to unleash the entity trapped within. The walls trembled, and for a brief moment, Evelyn thought she could hear something calling from the depths. Something that wasn't just alive, it was waiting. She had to act fast. The team worked frantically to seal off the chamber and disable the machinery they believed was linked to the Guardian. But the more they tried to undo what had been done, the stronger the energy grew. It was as though the entire planet was reacting, its core pulsing in rhythm with the Guardian's reawakening. Meanwhile, the enemy ships began their descent, their massive forms casting dark shadows over the surface of Earth. Each ship released pulses of energy, scanning the planet for signs of resistance. They knew Earth's secret, they had known for centuries. The Guardian, which had once been a symbol of safety, was now a beacon for those who had once feared it. They needed it. They had to control it, or destroy it. And with every moment that passed, the galaxy's dark history was coming back to life. Back on the station, Jensen gave the order. Prepare for combat. We can't allow them to land. Her voice was resolute, but even she could feel the weight of what they were about to face. These ships were not just relics of an old war. They were harbingers of the galaxy's darkest days. And they weren't the only threat. Earth's secret, the Guardian's power, was a wild card in the game. A power they couldn't begin to understand. The countdown to confrontation began. The station's weapons systems powered up, and the crew readied their defenses. But Jensen knew it wouldn't be enough. They had no way of knowing what the enemy ships were capable of. And as the first blast of energy from the ancient fleet hit the station's shields, the reality of their situation became undeniable. On Earth, the chamber beneath the Arctic was now fully active. The portal at its center pulsed with dark, unearthly energy. Klein and her team had failed to disable the Guardian's core, and now the darkness was spreading. The air itself felt thick, as though it was charging with power. The walls of the cavern seemed to be closing in on them, but Evelyn and her team couldn't afford to retreat. They had to stop what was coming, or the entire world would fall. And then they felt it. A tremor deep within the Earth, followed by a massive surge of energy. The Guardian was fully awake. The presence inside it, the entity that had been trapped for millennia, was stirring. It was free. And with its freedom, the planet began to react. The ground beneath the research facility cracked open, sending massive tremors through the landscape. The team scrambled to get to safety as the once immovable ice began to break apart, revealing an ancient structure buried deep beneath the surface. A structure that wasn't meant to be found. Evelyn reached for her communicator, her hands shaking. We need immediate evacuation. The Guardian's containment is breaking. Something worse is coming. Above them, in orbit, the ancient ships had begun to fire. The first blast hit Earth's atmosphere, creating an explosion that lit up the sky. The energy rippled through the planet's core, and for the briefest of moments, everything went silent. It was as if the entire world was holding its breath. And then, the dark, foreboding presence that had been building within the planet erupted into the open. The Guardian's prison was no longer secure. The entity it had contained, an ancient, dark force, older than the stars themselves, was unleashed. Its presence filled the atmosphere, spreading like a wave, casting an ominous shadow over the planet. Every living creature on Earth felt it. The air seemed to hum with a dreadful energy, and every sentient being understood. Earth was no longer the quiet, isolated world it once was. It was the epicenter of something that could unravel the galaxy. The ships of the ancient empires, now fully aware of what had happened, sent out another wave of communication. Their message was short, and its implications were devastating. The Guardian was never meant to hold the entity forever. It was always a matter of time. Now, Earth will burn. The galaxy's oldest civilizations had failed. They had tried to control the power within Earth, and now it was beyond their reach. The entity that had been locked away was no longer a threat just to Earth. It was a threat to the entire galaxy. The last remnants of these civilizations, unable to stop what they had unleashed, turned their ships toward the distant stars, knowing the battle was lost. But it wasn't over. Not yet. The galaxy was on the brink of war, and Earth, the planet that had unknowingly housed the most dangerous secret in the universe, was now the center of a battle for survival. The ancient empires would return, the dark entity would grow stronger, and the stakes could not have been higher. Jensen, on the station, knew there was only one choice left. Earth had to be evacuated. But even that might not be enough. With the Guardian broken and the entity unleashed, all they could do was fight. Earth had become the last battleground in a galactic war that would decide the fate of all life. And in the shadows of the infinite void, the dark force that had once been sealed away watched with quiet, ancient eyes, knowing that it was only a matter of time before its victory was sealed. The final battle had begun.